Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Olson with the NTCA. I want to welcome you and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend today's webinar. Today's webinar, Design 101, Designing with Profiles, is sponsored and presented by Schluter Systems. Before I introduce today's speaker, I want to remind you that during the webinar, you'll be muted. Please use the questions area on your computer to type in your questions, and we will answer your questions at the end of this presentation. If the audio on your computer is poor, call the number on your invite to this webinar and listen on your phone. As a reminder, all our webinars are available to watch at any time on the NTCA YouTube channel shortly after the webinars are presented. This will give you easier access to watch and/or share all current and past programs at your convenience. Here we go. I'm really excited to introduce our today's speaker. Actually, let me be more formal. Andrew Aker is Schluter Systems Director of Education, where he develops the education programs and is the lead presenter at the innovation workshops. His focus is developing workshops and classes that provide the tiling community with access to the industry-approved tiling methods and an overview of how Schluter products can increase the durability of these installations. Before joining Schluter in 1997, Andrew was a tile installer for 20 years, with over half his experience as a California State C54 licensed tile contractor. Andrew also served on the board of directors of the Ceramic Tile Education Foundation. Andy, welcome. Look forward to your presentation.
All right. Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. We do appreciate that you give us the opportunity to speak to a lot of your folks that follow you. So I'm really pleased to be here. Couldn't be more delighted to share one of these events with you. We do a couple of them a year with you, and so we do appreciate that time. So we're going to get going here because we have a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of profiles out there. Schluter is certainly known for those sticks. But when we get into this presentation, what starts right now, this is non-proprietary. There might be some images that you'll recognize if you follow us as a company, but really this is non-proprietary. This is good for a CEU if you're with a licensed accredited organization that requires that. You can report this one. This is good for that one. But what are we going to do while we're here all today together? Well, we're going to look at a lot of different trim profiles. We're into sticks, right? Schluter's known for all of our sticks. So we're going to look at a lot of sticks today to understand their basic design and their function. So we're going to look at design and function. This is nice that we can actually meet up here because the design community certainly focuses on design, how beautiful, the aesthetics of something, colors, textures, sizes, all that. And that's all really important stuff to the consumer, the business owner. But we also need it to function. And I'm sure when you talk to people in the tile industry, they're really concerned about function because they have to stand behind the performance of the tile assembly. So we're gonna couple those two together. That's going to be kind of fun to take a trip that way. And then we're going to look at transition issues and look at edge protection. We're going to look at movement joints, when, where, why, and how type of thing. And then we're going to look at alternatives to trim when the tile doesn't come with trim, which is also so prevalent these days. So this is what we're really going to get into. There are some documents that I'm going to be drawing from. If you're not familiar with them, I do want to give you just a moment to understand what they're all about. One of the main ones here, I hope you can see it. I can't see my own image. This is the Tile Council of North America Installation Handbook. This is a great document for reference for specifiers or installers. Gives you a ton of information on how to properly put in tile meeting the industry standards. Another one here, a little plug for you guys, Jim, at the National Tile Contractors Association. Every year the NTCA puts out this great reference book here that gives you a lot of information about proper installation, troubleshooting, all sorts of good stuff in this particular book here. And then I'm also going to be referring to the ANSI book, American National Standards Institute. So this is another document. So these three documents are all available to you, and I would recommend that if you do any specifying or any installation for that matter, you should get yourself a hold a copy of those. So, all right, so let's jump right in. Top bathroom design trends. We're going to talk about tile in general, but we're going to focus quite a bit in the bathroom in this particular presentation. So what are the design trends we're looking at currently? You can see from the image on the screen, there's quite a few of them represented right here in this image. Certainly the tiles are getting larger and larger. You know, back in the day, excuse me, when I started, an 8x8-inch tile was considered a large tile, and now a 12x12 is considered small and sort of passé by a lot of the design community. So certainly the tiles are getting much larger than they have been. And then the shape of the tile and the texture and the colors and what it mimics, like the wood tile you can see here, that is not wood, but it is actually a ceramic or a porcelain tile. So those are very trendy, and you can see that the size of them is nowhere near square. Many of them are quite a bit longer than they are wider. So again, another growing trend. And we'll talk about a couple of the challenges that we have now that we're using that format. Also, pattern tile, very, very trendy right now, trending very high, and people want this type of encaustic type of tile, or to bring back those patterns. These might be a little bit of a smaller tile than what we were just describing, but again, very on trend right now. And also different colors, like the matte black. The matte black has been hot for a while, and it doesn't seem to be going away much. People are picking up on that and liking that. The metallic finishes, if you can ever believe, I couldn't believe that the gold was going to come back in, but it's not the same gold. It's not our grandmother's gold or our mother's gold. These are different types of gold. You can see kind of a coppery rose gold, and even the matte types of metallic finishes, very, very trendy right now. And so that's something to pick up on when we start looking at profiles. Also, open concept. Open concept, not in the living space of the home, but actually in the bathroom too. We're removing the curbs, removing the shower doors, and putting in maybe a splash guard like you can see here in one of the images. Very, very on trend right now, and not just because of necessity, sometimes just for the design. So these are all things that we should be looking at as far as some of the new design trends. Also, these called invisible drains. In other words, they're a tileable drain grate where the water just drains out around the tile that's actually put over the top of specifically designed drain grates to accommodate tile. You can see the one on the picture on the right, but it's hard to see the one on the picture on the left there. But if you look closely underneath the niche on the wall, there is an extra line over there, and that's actually the drain. So you can see this kind of an infinity pool type of look. You can see how elegant that looks. So that's also very popular. Also, how about radiant heat? That's something that's definitely on trend now that the consumer wants. One of the big complaints they had, or challenges we had in the tile industry in regards to tile itself, was walking on it barefooted, and people said it was cold. And certainly in the bathroom, you're going to spend a lot of time barefooted. So now we can actually talk about putting a heat in there, a comfort floor underneath the tile, warming it up and making it comfortable. And you can see from the inset pictures how easily that would go in, and that's actually underneath the floors you're looking at. And then other design elements that the consumer wants, the homeowner, if you're doing residential work, they like benches, they love the niches, they want that flow that looks like the designs you see here in these type of elements. So niches, benches, no curb, no door, large tile, heated floor, all of these design trends are part of it, including these custom things. So let's jump into the finish the tile floor itself. So one place we're going to look is when you transition out of where you're not tiling. Yes, we do know in the tile industry that some floors are not all tile throughout the house. There could be other types of flooring. So let's take a look at that transition place where we're going from tile to where there's an adjacent covering. And of course, we need to protect the edge of the tile, and we want to give a nice, clean, professional edge to that transition, and do a couple of other things too. We'll look at that. You can see the difference here. This is more of a commercial setting, but it can certainly happen residentially too. So let's take a look at some of these profiles that we have up on the screen. The one in the upper left-hand corner is designed to give edge protection to the tile, prevent it from chipping or cracking, and also transition to an adjacent elevation floor, in this case a wood. And we know that wood needs some room to expand and contract as the temperature and the moisture content change in the structure. Certainly tile needs that too. This is going to accommodate that because it's a soft zone. So you can see it makes a very attractive transition plus protection for both surfaces. The next one over is very discreet, very thin line that's going to again give you the edge protection. And in many cases, you're not going to end up with the factory edge of your tile right here where you transition to another floor covering. It's probably going to be a cut. And in order to make that look very clean and very professional and as nice as it can, a lot of time a profile is used in that application. The next one over again is something that can be retrofitted. If it wasn't put in with the tile or the wood, you can see it's kind of a T shape that goes in there, allows those two materials to move in and out as they change dimension, as they expand and contract seasonally or from moisture content or heat. The one in the lower corner, you can see it has the ADA logo there. That means that it does come in ADA approved slope ratio transitions. So keep that in mind. You can see here, edge protection for the tile, sloping down to the adjacent covering that's lower than it, and giving the carpet a place to tuck that vulnerable edge so it's very neat and tidy and clean in there. The next one over in the center on the bottom, again, that can also be used there for ADA transitions. We do make a couple that don't meet ADA, so make certain you read up on the American Disability Act and transitions and slope ratios. It's going to change as the elevations differ there. When you get greater than a ½ inch, you're going to have to go to a wider ramp. But for these smaller transitions where the height is not more than ½ of an inch, there's many, many profiles on the market. That R designation also means that that profile can be snipped up and turned into a radius. If you don't have a straight edge, you have some sort of arc or radius that you built into your design, those products can actually be snipped either by the manufacturer or it can be done on the job site, and you can actually put a curve into there. The final one on the bottom right actually gives you edge protection for the tile, slope down to the adjacent covering, and it hides the edge of the adjacent covering. And many of these coverings, like some of the high pressure laminates and some of the vinyls that are on the market, require about ¼ of an inch to actually grow in size and recede, retract. So they're going to need some space to move around underneath there. And this one's actually a height adjustable ramp that pivots on a ball and socket. So if you don't know what your elevations are going to be when everything's said and done, this will actually accommodate many, many different transitions. So keep all these in mind as some of the opportunities at the transition from tile to where tile is no longer. Now, how do you select the type of material? These materials or these products come in a lot of different types of materials. So here's just a quick look here, this little table on the screen showing you that if you have a heavy commercial setting, you should be really looking for a heavy duty material like either stainless steel or a brass material. In a light commercial, of course, those two, you could use those there. And then you can start introducing some of the aluminums and even some of the PVCs on the walls and countertops, but not on the floor. Let's reserve the PVC for walls and countertops, tub decks, that type of thing. We'll get into that a little later. And then in residential, of course, you can use any of those things. They'll withstand all the rigors of those environments. So how about these large format tile that are coming out now? And you can see from this image, the small tile doesn't just end when you go into the shower. So they've continued that look right into the shower. So if you look in the back of that shower through the splash guard, you can see they used a line drain because the line drains trays are flat, plain, that allow you to accommodate any size tile. So this is a very popular application that you're looking at here. So this is a very large format tile that you're seeing applied here. It's about 2 foot by 2 foot square. The thing that's coming on strong when we start putting these large format tiles on down on floors is the floors are really not suitable for that size of a tile because they're not even enough. They undulate if they're concrete or wood or whatever, and we need to have a very, very flat floor. That's why I thought it'd be a good idea for you to have either this book or this type of ANSI book that I've got here, because this will actually give you the specifications on how flat the floor needs to be. Also, what comes into play is your bond coat. Say your thin set mortar that you're going to use to actually put the tile in. So those things are all coming into play. So lippage is the term that's used when the tiles are not flush with each other, when they translate from one to the next tile, where you have the joint, the grout line there. So you need to be within a compliance of the lippage, the amount you can be out of plane. And that's also listed in these books that I just showed you. The other problem is the cracking, where they're bridging large expanses and so forth. So we want to take a look and see what can we do about these. So certainly we need a very flat floor. The tolerances are listed in these handbooks that I showed you as far as how flat the floor needs to be in order to accommodate these large format tiles. Then you have to make certain you get proper coverage and you use the right type of bond coat, the right type of thin set. And there's actually a thin set designation in the market called large and heavy tile, LHT, and that's the type of thin set that should be used to bond these large formats so they support the tile and they don't shrink at different rates and become uneven after they dry up, and the bond coat shrinks too much if you don't use an LHT. So also we have to incorporate some sort of uncoupling function. This is where in the old days, when we used a real thick mortar bed with the cleavage membrane, some sort of felt or plastic or something underneath the mortar bed, that allowed the tile to be unchanged by the dynamics of the structure or the floor itself. So certainly you should think about an uncoupling membrane, a traditional mortar bed with cleavage membrane, a crack isolation membrane, something that you would incorporate under the tile so the tile isn't directly bonded to the substrate below it, whether it be a concrete or a wood product or whatever. And also movement joints. So we're going to get into those here in a little while. So all things that you should be looking for when you want a successful tile installation that will stand there and last as long as the consumer wants it to. And that's something about tile in general. If you look at these images, these photographs you're looking at, none of these have to do with the tile performance itself. It was that something wasn't taken into consideration when methods of installation and materials were selected to do this tile installation. So something went wrong after the fact, and you can see some of them are a nuisance, other ones are certainly a catastrophic failure. We can prevent these type of things, so keep this in mind. So this is where we're talking about maybe an uncoupling membrane is something that you should be looking at to put under the tile veneer and over the substrate to prevent that delamination or cracking or all of that differential movement between the substrate and the tile that's going to happen due to moisture change or temperature change or even loading the floor with traffic or what have you. So keep those in mind. So these are nice because not only do they give you that function, but they're also going to allow the tile to support any weight that it's suitable for, and it will prevent any moisture content from, say, on top in a bathroom, a kitchen, a mud room, a laundry room, from any of that moisture getting down into maybe a moisture sensitive building material like a plywood or an OSB or maybe a gypsum screed that's in under there, or maybe you have a lot of moisture content in the concrete itself or under the concrete if it's a slab that's been poured on the grade of the ground or even below grade like a basement. You're going to get all the functions you need to withstand all of those type of elements. And here's where there's an example where you can incorporate the floor warming cable right in to the membrane under the tile, and now you've got that nice warm floor to walk on. So there's another function that also comes in to play in the design. And how about also many of these membranes that are on the market that accommodate not only for the movement between tile and the substrate, protect the tile, and they incorporate the floor warming cable, but then they also have a thermal break and a sound attenuation mat. So they can have all of these functions all in one component, which are just going to increase the durability of the job and the livability of the structure too, frankly. So keep those in mind. So why movement joints? Let's get to that part. Well, we do need to have expansion contraction of the tile layer. the tile will expand and contract due to moisture content or loading or temperature. And it has to do with what kind of tile it is, if it's stone or if it's a porcelain or if it's just ceramic or something like that. They'll all move at different degrees depending on their nature and what they're made out of. But it's also in there, if the substrate actually does move and the tile doesn't move at the same rate or the same degree, you're going to need to accommodate that there also. So these are all things that we need to stress. And I know the design community doesn't like to hear the tile community harp about movement joints all the time, but it's really one of the key factors and one of the top reasons why a tile job will have problems similar to those troublesome photos I showed you just earlier. So let's take a look at these movement joints. So you can see the nature of some other issues that have happened when movement was not accommodated. Again, it's the relationship of the tile veneer to the substrate below it, as far as how much it expands and contracts and to what degree and at what rate. But it's also for the tile layer itself, the characteristic of just it alone. If you have a membrane underneath it, you still need to accommodate that tile moving too. And you can see the nature of some of the movement that occurred here. So where would you put them? Certainly against restraining surfaces. And if you look at this image here, anywhere you see an orange line is an opportunity to introduce some sort of movement accommodation. You can see in some places they'll be exposed, like in the doorways from one room to the adjacent room, or perhaps in the kitchen area where you transition from the kitchen into the nook where there's 3 large windows. And those windows will allow a lot of sunlight in, and that tile will actually move at a greater degree in there. So we're accommodating that and kind of isolating that area to do what it needs to do without affecting the tile or the ground. You can see a lot of time it takes it out on the ground, right? Also, the perimeter of every room. Now, that doesn't necessarily need to be a profile or any kind of material. You can simply leave an open space, airspace under, say, the baseboard that no one will see, and that will allow the floor underneath it to move at a different rate than the tile veneer itself. Also, in front of the toe kicks to the cabinets, those are considered a restraining surface, along with, if you look in the bathroom, in the front of the bathtub. Bathtubs are very hard materials. They can actually play the role as a restraining surface too. So this is some good guidelines. And again, you can find them in these handbooks and certainly in this Tile Council handbook, EJ 171. If you're taking notes, you can find that way in the back of the book here. And it gives you all the location and frequency of where you should be putting your movement joints. So keep that in mind. You have a lot of guidance on how to incorporate these into a tile assembly. So you can see all the different places where we put them. Also, the tiles are large and the expanses are getting great, which means, and the grout lines, of course, everyone wants them narrower. So these large expanses of tiles are also a challenging place where we need to increase the expansion joint frequency when we make the tiles large and the grout lines narrow. So keep that in mind. Also, a lot of these floors are engineered to go greater distances without any support below them, which means they're kind of live. They kind of feel like you can bounce on them. Have you ever been in an airport or a hospital or a shopping mall or any of these larger buildings? You can feel other people moving that floor a little bit. That also can come into play. So let's all take that into consideration. And again, the handbooks will give you direction on those different environments and location and frequency. So another place where anticipated vertical movement comes into play. Certainly you can't bridge a tile across over these seams where these could be moving out of plane like this, a vertical movement. So keep that in mind too. Now, how about some design options? If we actually get to the design, we don't want it to show up that much. We definitely want to appeal to people's aesthetics, and you can see the different images here. The one in the upper left corner there is a very small movement joint, only about 3/16 of an inch wide. It's going to accommodate minimum movement there to allow those tiles to expand and contract at their own rate, because you can see we have a uncoupling membrane underneath there, which is going to play the role of the mediator between the tile veneer and the substrate, but we just need to have something for the tile itself. This one will accommodate that. The next two over actually do have a metal edge for edge protection, so there's something that would be like commercial kind of application or even heavy duty, where both of these movement joints are actually removable and replaceable. If they ever get wore out or damaged, you can actually move those out. The two on the bottom of your screen have no movement joint in them per se, like a soft joint. The design of the profile itself allows for independent movement in and out, sort of like I'm doing here with my two hands here, showing you the type of movement. So there's nothing to wear out or wear out or get damaged in there. They sort of work on a kind of a ball and socket look. So keep these all in mind, and they're designed for different applications, and you can find these readily available from many manufacturers. Also, the colors. We want those to disappear. Well, we want them to either really complement the grout line, would be probably the first factor to think of, or maybe complement the tile if the tile and grout do match quite considerably. So they come in many, many different finishes and colors, so keep that in mind. Here's one that you can hardly see unless you take a look at it there. You can see before and after in this installation photo of where it actually went as you transition from one room into the other room. A great opportunity to introduce some movement into a floor, even in a residential application. So certainly for floor tile, we want to protect the edge of the tile. We want to have a nice transition that looks professional and clean and does whatever it needs to do as far as in plane, out of plane, whatever we're doing. Something also there to isolate the tile from vulnerability from the substrate below. And then let's take a look at the type of movement joints we have, whether it's just a space that's a gap under another baseboard or something, or whether it's going to be visible, and what kind of application you need. What's the environment going to be like? Is it residential? Is it light commercial? Is it more heavy duty? You'll find a lot of different profiles available to accommodate that movement. All right, let's move on now. How about finishing these tiled walls? If you look at this image, we looked at this earlier. I didn't call this to your attention at that point, but you can see here, these are very, very large format tile and actually come with no trim at all. You're going to get a field tile. In other words, just the tile with the abrupt edge around it, and not necessarily the glazing or the coloring going clear throughout and covering the edge. So you don't really want that to show. Plus you need edge protection, and you want it to look very professional and clean type of application. So you can see a couple places we've called out those here. We certainly don't want to see what we're seeing in the images on the left. That does not really show well of what the tile industry is capable of doing. And I can guarantee you that these profiles are not that expensive. They're nowhere near the cost of a tile one if it is available. And you can get them in varying finishes and colors, and we'll get into that. And you can see how clean and professional and aesthetically pleasing they are when you incorporate those. So different options. You can get a flat edge one that's just going to simply cover up the edge of the tile that isn't glazed or colored. You can go that route. You can get one more of a square edge if you're looking for that type of design. The old rounded edge that's been around in the tile industry for eons there, it seems, with the quarter rounds, if you remember those, or something that's just going to give the tile edge protection, but doesn't really interfere with the actual design. You could do slim edges too, and it's hard to even see it there, but there is a profile in there, just doing that nice transition on an outside vertical corner, as all of them are there. So again, the R designation in that particular one shows you that that one can actually be cut either by a manufacturer or on the job site to actually do curves and radiuses. Lots of different finishes. Certainly these days we want to have a complementary look between the tile and a trim piece. Metallic is great in some applications. Other places it's just not going to be the right fit. So keep in mind that they come in lots of colors and finishes that you could have out there. So you can see here, there's where you have more of a metallic look in some of them. The images on the left show you that you're actually using it as part of the design element. And then other places where it's simply meant to blend in with the tile and not really show itself, but do the job that it's intended to do. You can see it here as a edge protection and finishing piece on the top photo, and actually as a very easy to maintain moppable cove in the bottom. Also, here's some other, I'm going to show you a series of pictures here where you actually see the profiles installed. How about the niches here? You can see that they've been framed out with these profiles. We have a little ledge there behind the tub. We have that in place. So those are places that you could use that. Here we're going to do a before and after, so you can see that the profile goes in when the tile is installed. All of these have an anchoring leg that's anchored into the bond coat, into the thin set, and then the tile is put over the top of that bond coat and over the profile, holding the profile in place. So that's what actually how it's installed and how it's held in. And you can see that they're very unobtrusive. They do a great job of just finishing off those edges. Another locations here, you can see pony wall, the niche, the front of the suspended bench in the shower, and even the suspended vanity top that's there with the vessel sinks. Very nice, very clean look there. Here's something that's more of a commercial application here. You can see that there was no sink there was no sink top or countertop put in. This is all constructed here with lightweight buildable foam core building panels, and then profiles and tile, and actually one of those channel drains, one of the line drains has been incorporated in here into this assembly. So you can get very creative with these. These are becoming more popular the longer they've had examples out on the market, by the way. Another place where you see some edging done here around a windowsill, that makes for a very clean application where you're going from tile to, well, not tile in this case, in the sill, but that could be a tile corner on both surfaces too. Some other photos or images here of the quarter round type of look. If you want more of that classic look here, you could get the quarter round look, and you can see how nice that complements the different shades of tile. Here also, where this is kind of a design element, they've used a brushed aluminum to kind of mimic the brushed finishes on the fixtures in this particular application. To do that, here again, that type of look. Here they made it blend more into the tile instead of actually matching the fixtures, where you can see where you've got more of the matte black, but that would be a design element too. Here are those channel drains, those line drains also incorporated in here into this sink. Edging the outside corner, of course, the picture on the left could be about a bathroom, but it's probably a family room or a living room where they just simply wanted to cover up the edge of the tile that didn't have any glaze and didn't have through color. Same as the image on the right. It's very sleek, very unobtrusive to put in that case there. These also can be radius. You can see they were used here in this particular application in a steam shower that had a chaise built into it. So that was a very nice design element in there. Here's that very fine edge one that I showed you earlier. It's really hard to see it when you see the tile installed and it grouted, but you can see that it's exposed above there to show you that that is actually a profile in there. Those tiles are vulnerable. If they take a hard blow or a knock, it could actually chip a tile. So that's a good idea to put those in there. I know a lot of tile installers like to just back cut those tile on their tile saw and put a miter on the backside and slide them up there. And that may look good for a while if they did a very nice job, but this is going to ensure additional support and protection of that edge. Also, if you have something where the design element is like some of these tiles with the designs in them like this, you don't want to interrupt that and ruin your aesthetic. So this is nice to incorporate that very fine little line edge into these type of applications. Another nice option that being used quite often is to actually mix the tile, the different textures, colors, sizes, like you see in these photographs. So keep in mind that many of those smaller format tile are much thinner than the other large tile you're putting out on the rest of the field. So you're going to have to come up with a way to accommodate the difference in thicknesses. So keep in mind that there are different materials on the market that can withstand the rigors of this environment, this wet area like this, that can actually pad out or shim out that area so that you can get that nice flush transition between different tiles as far as their thicknesses. And that's really what you should be aiming for, is that nice clean look like you're seeing here in these photographs. Design options for cove bases. You can see here they put a nice cove base in here. That's going to make it easy to clean. And the tile that's on the baseboard is actually floor tile. So they just literally cut slices of the floor tile and used it on the base for the tile base and capped off the top of the edge. You can see that looks real clean, quite professional. It's going to function quite nicely, and actually per linear foot, it comes out a lot less expensive than the tile that comes with trim, which is getting less and less these days, certainly. Also, the movement joints. You do need a movement joint in these various locations where changes in plane occur. That's always a good place to put one in, because there's always going to be movement, whether it's horizontal or a vertical movement. You want to accommodate that type of movement. Also, the first course of tile to a tub or a shower pan, if you have that, or right down onto a floor. You can see where, if you actually use these, the pictures on the right-hand side, how clean and maintenance-free these type of applications become. And here's a couple of the profiles that I just showed you here. One has a tile pocket where it actually hides the cut edge of the tile that's up against the perimeter of the floor. And then you stack the wall tile or the baseboard if it's just a single, or not even a single tile, or maybe just a 4-inch or 6-inch ripping of a tile, depending on your size tile you're using, that you can stack off of there, and that becomes the grout line. It becomes the caulk joint. It is the joint between the two. It accommodates movement there at the changes in planes and for the floor to move in and out, and gives you that nice clean edge, and it's maintenance free. The other image used all the time, it's where we're not doing the countertops, just the backsplashes, for instance, and it's nice to introduce a profile like that to accommodate that movement. And again, they come in many, many different colors from many manufacturers that can actually complement the deck or the tile or the grout or whatever direction you want to go. But some of them are in here. You can see they come in various colors, and if we didn't point them out, it would be hard for you to see them. So that's one of the points that we need to make here. Also, in these applications, a before and after in this bathroom, showing how they've been incorporated in here. So now no need for maintenance, caulking, regrouting, or any of those type of duties that you would have to do on a regular maintenance schedule if you did not use them. Also here, you can see a couple of them being used here off of the tub deck, off of the countertop, and many of the different colors that they will actually come in. The movement joints here, where we're going from a large format tile down to a smaller mosaic on the actual chaise in the steam room. And you can see where those have been incorporated. They go in quite nicely. They actually do accommodate the radius, so keep that in mind. You can see the one that's radiused in the inset picture there. You can see that it doesn't have as much anchoring leg as the one that's vertical going up that inside corner. So that's how it's been altered to be able to be bent into a radius like that. A couple of other here where you can see that the cove base that was there was vulnerable in more of a, I guess, a light commercial to heavy commercial application. That looks like the one on the bottom. The tile that they selected didn't come with any cove, but it was a requirement to have cove. So now they had to go select another tile that they could get in a cove, and tried to make it look nice, but I think the image on the right is a lot closer to what we would actually want to see in a tile installation, certainly. Cove shape profiles depends on whether you've got tile on both sides or tile on one side, and maybe some sort of flooring or countertop deck on the other for the deck. Those are profiles that are available to accommodate that type of cove. Again, the different colors, the different finishes, they're available to complement the tile or be a design element if you want a metallic look. Those are available. Certainly here the metallic look worked. It came out nice because of the sink itself and the appliances and a lot of other factors that came into play. Kind of a modern look, very sleek. It's going to be very easy to maintain this and keep things clean. And as far as having to replace that grout line or repair it or put in caulk down the road, none of that's going to happen in this type of instance. Wow, look at this. They did great lengths to design this niche in here and actually take that small tile, that small round tile, and curve it in there. But then on the inside of the inset, they didn't want to take up a lot of the deck space with the curve and have the shelf be so narrow. They used one of the small coves in the back to get that cove for easy cleaning and accommodation of movement, so it never have to be grouted or caulked. But you can see that that worked quite well in this particular application. And that was the profile that was actually used in that application there. Many different colors. So Finish and edge protection, you're going to have to want them both, design and function. That's going to be important in these applications. Certainly the no need for mitering or having an exposed non-finished edge of a tile like we saw in a couple of those images. It's going to go with the accessories. It'll match the tile, complement the tile or the grout. You can just blend in and actually does it in a quite economical fashion, by the way. And of course, options, colors, textures, multicolored to go with multicolored tile, which is all the rage these days. So lots of stuff to choose from out there as far as your profiles for the design element. All right, so that brings me to the end of this particular presentation. So I think maybe if there's any questions or comments at this point, Jim, we can address those.
Well, great. That was very informative and well put together, Andy. Thank you. We do have one question here that came up, but how do you keep the void behind a cove profile from filling up with moisture in a shower application?
Well, you really don't prevent it from filling up with moisture. You're not supposed to pack that full because then you leave your movement joint area hard, and you don't want that. What's important in that assembly is that the water doesn't have any way to get out onto the floor, but then you also have continuous waterproofing behind the profile. This comes up quite a bit, this question at many of installation workshops, where they're like, okay, I put the profile in its cove and now I have this void behind there. How about if water gets back there? Well, you could actually pack it with something soft if you wanted to, like a caulking that wouldn't be visible, that would fill that void. But more importantly, the primary thing that you want to do is make certain that your waterproofing behind your tile and of course your profiles is all continuously waterproof so no water can get out of the assembly.
Great, great. Well, you know what I always say, the better the presentation, the less questions we have. So
Okay.
You did a great job, and our attendees, I think, got a great program. I really appreciate it. I do want to ask one thing, Andy. I did send out to everyone that if they're interested in an AIA CEU for this presentation, that they contact you, and I gave them your email address. Is that okay?
My personal email, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can give them. I'm not sure the CEU number, and or if we have the number on this particular one. Most of that's self-reporting for AIA and
Okay.
some of the
All right.
design elements, but certainly we can help people if they do need that to get them the title or so forth. But this it's funny. I actually borrowed this presentation from our commercial and architectural team, so I know that they've given this one in a lot of places where someone requires some points for their continuing ed. So this was one of the ones that did meet that accreditation. I would like to, one more plug, Jim, is how's this image? Can you see this book from where
It's good. Yeah, I can see it real well.
Yeah, this is the current copy. This is a 2021. This is the most current copy, and it does have a lot of great information. Of course, there's details all throughout it, but in the first, say, 45 pages or so, there's all kinds of great information about installation and that type of thing. And also, another plug for you guys at the NTCA, this is a great book. We actually get a lot of these books and give them to our attendees. I know you're familiar with that, Jim, but this is a great book for reference if you need to have more information about tile installation, whether you specify, sell, or install. These are both great books that you should have on your shelf at home or in your
Andy,
office.
I want to put a little plug in for the NTCA reference manual that this year, and just within the last couple of weeks, the 2021/22 version came out, and you have yours there. But it is now available electronically also. So let us know if you want it, and you can have it on your phone, on your tablet, or whatever. So that'll be great.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. These are all the documents that I showed today are available electronically. That's great that yours is out. And you do have the 21/22 book out?
Yeah, it should be mailed out. It probably was mailed out in the last couple of weeks.
Okay,
So,
great. I'll be
okay.
looking forward to getting my new copy.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think I got 3,500 copies coming to you real soon too, by the way. So.
Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you that you filled my order. I appreciate that. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. So everybody, Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. All of you that attended, thank you for taking the time, and look forward to our upcoming webinars. You'll be invited here shortly. Andy, you and I will talk soon.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.